Another beautiful Tuesday morning. Hold on, let me mute somebody. Yeah, beautiful rainy Tuesday morning. One thing that I know we're probably all thinking, thank God it's raining. We just haven't got enough rain lately, at least in central Illinois. Okay, so for today's edition of Training Tuesday, we're going to talk about the BEP contract percentage field at PO. That is now a required field. We talked about it last month, but we'll just go back over it now that it is a required field in bid buy. BEP good faith effort database, which is kind of just adding on to what we talked about last week with the CPO notice 2022.01 regarding this BEP good faith effort database. Then we'll discuss our bid buy monthly training, which is this Wednesday, and then our bid buy practice sessions, which will be the following day. Then fun fact of the day, quote of the day. So first up is the BEP contract percentage field. Now we talked about this about a month ago. So you can go back to the May 18th slides if you want to do more of a deep dive, but we'll remind you what this is for. So it's now a required field at the PO stage. So back then when we first discussed it a month ago, we let you know that once we got into the fiscal year, the new fiscal year was going to become a required field, but it wasn't required at that time. So now that has been changed. So if you do have any POs, once you get to that stage, you're going to see that there's an asterisk next to it, and that is now a required field. So this is separate from the BEP goal percentage field, which is brought over from the bid. And so what this is it's automatically going to show up at the PO when yes is selected to the question, is there a BEP VBP participation goal? Okay, so any of your procurements that do not have goals on them, so if this answer is there a BEP participation goal? If that's no, these fields below it will not show up. However, at the bid, if this is yes, the BEP goal percentage is the goal that's placed on the solicitation. Then, once you get to the PO and you're going to be contracting with that one vendor, you have a BEP contract percentage. Now, we have a couple notes regarding this. This is just a screenshot that I pulled, and you can see that there's an asterisk next to it, the BEP contract percentage field now, whereas a couple weeks ago, you didn't see that there, or last week even, you didn't see that there. So the BEP goal percentage could be different from the BEP contract percentage, right? So let me go to the next slide here. So we have a couple notes regarding this. The job aids have already been updated to include it. So there's no change in the job aids. We made the change a month ago when we made the field available, but now we just want to let you know that it will be a hard stop if you don't complete that field. You will have it's a required field, so you'll get the little pop-up if you try to save and continue without having completed that field. So what this does is it makes the tracking and reporting on BEP goals and BEP contract percentages much easier, because if it's due to maybe a good faith effort, those numbers could be different, right? So the goal could have been 10%, or let's say the goal is 20%, but due to a good faith effort waiver, now it got bumped down to 10% at the contract. So from the PO, you'll be able to see what the BEP goal was originally on the solicitation, and then also what the BEP contract percentage is. They're often the same number, but not always. And I gave the example of where those situations where they could be lower. So if a vendor is self-fulfilling the goal, you will enter 100% into this field. And that was a question that came up. So if they're a BEP vendor, they're actually self-fulfilling the goal, they wouldn't be putting in just the 10%. They're actually putting in 100% of that field. And so this also means that it's a slight change in process from what we had done months and months ago. So that BEP goal percentage that's brought over from the bid, you don't touch that. You want that to stay exactly the way it was. So that way you can just look at the PO and you can see what the goal percentage was and then what the BEP contract percentage was. So just it's really going to make all your reporting that much easier from the agency standpoint, rather than having to go back to a bid to see what the goal percentage was, and then if it got changed at PO, it just really makes that entire process much easier on you to be able to see what BEP goals have changed, or if they did change from the solicitation to the point where you get to the contract. Okay. Do we have any questions regarding that? Again, we talked about it in depth about a month ago. So if you want to go back and take a look at the May 18th video, you can take a look at that. Okay. Next up, so the BEP Waiver Database. So we talked about this. This is kind of in conjunction with the CPO Notice 2022.01 that we talked about last week, which you can go back and take a look at. But Section 7.5 of the BEP Act requires that the Chief Procurement Officer to maintain a database of good faith effort waivers granted by the BEP Council when a vendor demonstrates a good faith effort to comply with the BEP participation goals in a solicitation. Also, the agency's written request for a BEP goal exemption for an individual contract or an entire class of contracts, and the BEP Council's written determination, which has been delegated to the BEP program, granting or denying a request for an exemption. And so I do want to highlight it's not just if it gets approved, but even if it gets denied, that also needs to be in this database. So we're going to show you where that database is going to live. I have the link here that takes you directly to that, but it's going to be living in the procurement resource library. So let me go out and just kind of show you again where that procurement resource library is. So from the CPOGS website, you scroll down all the way down to the bottom, procurement resource library. And again, this is the exact same page that you would go to if you're going to go to the CPO notices, or if you go to the solicitation and contract templates and forms. I know I've shared in the past to just make this page a favorite in your browser, or maybe even in some of our other trainings, I've said the highlight and make the solicitation and contract templates and forms, just because this page, so many people go to this page so often. That's one of our suggestions. So anyway, from the CPOGS website, you go to Procurement Resource Library, and you can see that there's a new folder down here that says BEP Waivers. BEP Waivers, and this is where that database is going to live. Okay, so we also have the good faith effort waivers at contract renewal, the good faith effort waivers at solicitation and contract goal exemptions, and that's the slide that we just talked about. There will be a database here for that, as well as for the prohibited firms, due to the Section 7.6, the BEP Act maintains a list of those vendors that have been prohibited from bidding due to resulting from a violation of the BEP Act. Okay, pretty straightforward there, but just want to let you know where you're at, or where those will be living, because we had a couple questions after last week's training regarding that. Again, so just going back to that process and the database, going back to the CPO notice from last week, that process will be to send to Diana Segrist the specific documentation. So just as a reminder, we can go back and take a look at last week's training, or take a look at the CPO notice 2022.01, and it will tell you exactly what you need to do. You're going to be submitting this documentation, the good faith effort waiver granted by the BEP Council, the agency's written request for the goal exemption, and then the BEP Council's written determination. Again, as a reminder, you're going to be sending that directly to the email in the CPO notice, which is Diana Segrist, and you will not be sending that directly to your SPO, and then the SPO forwards on. This will be coming directly from the agency to Diana Segrist. Okay, so we have a couple questions here. Okay, can you discuss a little about the difference between requesting an exemption when a zero goal is computed by BEP and a good faith effort? Are they unique? Okay, great question. So if the goal was computed by BEP at 0%, that means that there is 0% on that solicitation, which would mean none of this would be applicable. What this is going to be applicable for is BEP computes, there will be a, let's say, 20% goal. That there should be a 20% goal on the solicitation. Then, as a part of their good faith effort process, the vendor submits all the documentation. They reach out to all of the potential BEP subcontracting that is potentially available. They have all that documentation as a part of their U plan, but as a part of that good faith effort, they're only able to potentially subcontract out 10%. So as a part of that good faith effort, that is all documented, and then that gets the approval from, or it gets denied from BEP. Okay, so again, this is only if there is a BEP percentage goal on a solicitation, and a potential vendor, a potential prime vendor, cannot meet that subcontracting goal. Then, as a part of their good faith effort, they complete the documentation and then submit. Okay, so if there is a 0% goal, this does not need to be none of this is applicable. It's only applicable if that BEP waiver, good faith effort waiver, is required. Okay. And then, so I guess another helpful hint too is going back. Let me go back a slide. This BEP contract percentage. So let's kind of bring in bid buy to this. So let's take a look at this is the bottom of the general tab. If this BEP goal percentage, in this case, is 17, and the BEP contract percentage, let's say, was 10, because of a good faith effort, that's immediately going to tell you that, yes, I need to send this documentation as a part of that good faith effort waiver. So anytime, I guess that's a kind of a good little rule of thumb is anytime that BEP contract percentage, again, this is the new required field we're talking about, is less than the goal percentage, you will be then needing to submit that documentation once it's approved or denied, either way, again, to Diana Segrist, and that'll go into the database. And again, this database is stemming from changes in the BEP Act. We referenced the BEP Act in that in the previous slide. Where'd it go? Right there. So section 7.5. I couldn't remember what section it was. So that section 7.5 requires the CPO's office to maintain that database. Let's see a couple more questions. When would you request an exemption? So I think as a part of that exemption, that is what you're, if I understand the question correctly, I think that's exactly when you are, you're requesting the exemption as a part of the good faith effort. Do we attach the good faith effort to the website for approval, or do we attach to receive approval? Okay, so the good faith effort is going to be happening outside, right it's going to be happening between the agency and BEP. You're not going to be attaching anything to the website. So why don't I go real quick, and rather than just referencing last week, let's go straight to the notice. So the notice is 2022-01. Make that a little bigger for us. So within 7 calendar days of the award of a contract, the agencies shall provide to the Chief Procurement Officer for General Services any waivers, written requests for exemption, and determinations described in Section 7 of the BEP Act. So as a part of this notice, it just references, again, what we just talked about on that other slide. Section 7.5 of the BEP Act requires each CPO's office to maintain on the official website a searchable database of the following: the waivers that are granted under Section 7, the agency's written request for an exemption of an individual contract, and the council's written determination. So when you have this situation, again, the goal at the bid was 20%, but due to the good faith effort, from your vendor, they could only potentially do 10%. You're going to have these 3 different documents that are then going to be emailed to Diana Segrist at diana.segrist@illinois.gov. Okay, so you're not going to be attaching anything to the website. That's going to be coming through Diana. But I just wanted to make the point that the CPO notice specifically calls out that you will be sending it directly to Diana, and it won't be going through your SPO. If you wanted to CC your SPO just so it's more of a communication and make sure everybody's on the same page, I think that's perfectly fine. It kind of keeps everybody on the same page. But it will not be coming through the SPO. I think that's just touching too many people. It needs to go directly to Diana per the CPO notice. Let's see here. Does BEP also submit this information on their part? No, they'll be sending it back to you because again, the agency at that point is requesting a waiver from the good faith effort from BEP. So if BEP denies that request, then additional steps will have to be taken. So it'll be coming from BEP. You get that approval from BEP, then you will be submitting the documents to Diana, and then that also needs to go into the procurement file. So at this point, this would be attached in the PO in bid buy. But again, there's this activity that takes place outside of bid buy between the agency and BEP. And again, overarchingly, if there's no goal, none of this is applicable. This is only applicable when you have a good faith effort waiver request if the prime vendor cannot meet the BEP goal set forth in the solicitation. Okay. All right, I think we're caught up on our questions. And let's go back to our slideshow. And again, if you have any other specific questions when this comes up, I understand that this can be one of those things where you don't have one of these in the hopper right now, but a few months from now, that's going to happen, and you're going to say, well, what did Dave say about that? Always go back to the slides. You can come back to the video, or you can reach out to your SPO as well, and we can walk you through this process. All right, next up, so our monthly bid buy training will be taking place this Wednesday, tomorrow. It's the second Wednesday of every month. We walk through a full day of bid buy training. And if you notice, I do want to highlight we did make one slight tweak, and it is our very last session here, which is 3 p.m. We were consistently running into pushing that back a little bit anyway, because that small purchase over $10,000 really is a full 90-minute training. So we bumped that back to 3 p.m. Everything else is still exactly the same. 9 a.m. session, we do overview general navigation. 10:15, we do small purchase under $10,000. Break for lunch, do small purchase over 10. Short little break, and then finish up doing release off master. We got another question here. If BEP approved the waiver or reduction, do we still submit the details to the CPO? Yes. Yes, so that's exactly what you would do in that case. That's what the CPO notice requires. That's what the BEP Act requires. If BEP approves the waiver or a reduction, so either way, that good faith effort waiver is requested. So that's a good question. Let's clarify there. It's not just if the goal was 10% and then the goal percentage is now 0%. It's even if it's reduced. So let's say the goal percentage was 10%, the contract percentage, so when you get to the contract due to the good faith effort from the part of the prime vendor, they say, oh, we can only do 5%. That good faith effort waiver still is required, and so you still would go through that process of course, documenting that in the procurement file. But the additional step here is just sending one email to Diana with that documentation. Okay, did I answer that question? All right. So our bid by monthly training will be tomorrow. That'll be all day. There's no need to register. feel free to jump right in. If you've attended training in the past, you can come again for a refresher. It's also great for any new users. This is the training too that new users do need to attend prior to receiving access to BidBuy. All right, and then the next day, on Thursday, we'll be having our BidBuy practice sessions. And so these are a little more informal. We've talked about these each week. I don't think I need to go through them. They are very helpful. It's just another opportunity for people to practice, but you do not have to have attended the monthly training immediately prior to attend these practice sessions. Anybody can join these practice sessions, and they will be the second and third Thursday of each month at 9 a.m. The links are in the training center, but I also have them in the slides here as well. So this Thursday's link, again, the second and third Thursdays, the links are going to be different. I'm not able to make them the same link. So if you go to the training center in our trainings, you'll see two different links there. One is for the second Thursday, one is for the third Thursday. So in July, our third Thursday will be this week. Okay, again, no need to register. Just click on the link and join when it's time at 9 a.m. We also have the links here to our CPOGS, our training center, and our Training Tuesdays calendar of events. You can always find our trainings on that page. All right, so our fun fact of the day, the Hollywood sign. The famous Los Angeles landmark is officially dedicated July 13th, 1923. It originally read Hollywood Land. The sign was originally intended as a temporary ad for a new housing development in the hills above the Hollywood district of LA, but due to increasing recognition, the sign was left up. I didn't realize how big these letters were. So each letter of the original sign was 30 by 50 feet high, and the whole sign was studded with about 4,000 light bulbs, and they flashed in segments. So it would say Hollywood, Holly, then wood, land. They would light up individually, and then the whole sign. And the sign cost $21,000, which is $320,000 in 2019 dollars. Pretty impressive. And then our quote of the day: don't carry your mistakes around with you. Instead, place them under your feet and use them as stepping stones. I love that. From a guy that makes plenty of mistakes, this is a good way to, turn around and learn from them and move on. So do we have any other final questions? Let's see. Can the awarded vendor in the middle of a contract term apply for a reduce of BEP goal? I'm sorry, I'm going to need to refer you to BEP for that question. So once you're in the middle of the contract, that would be something that's had to be pretty specific. I wouldn't be able to give you a definitive answer about that. I apologize. Is there a resource out there to fill out BOAs correctly and what all the terminology on the BOAs mean when certain things are used? I don't think we have a specific resource out there to your first question in terms of filling out the BOAs correctly. Maybe there's some specific questions there that you could reach out to me independently or to your SPO regarding filling out correctly. I mean, there's fields on there, but it sounds like we might need to maybe take this offline, and if there's something specific that you're asking. And John, good question. When did the land come off the sign, Hollywood Land? Good question. I'll have to use the old Google machine there. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great rest of your week. Of course, the slides will go out to everybody on the call, and the recording will be posted shortly. Thank you very much, and have a great rest of your week. Oh, Randy says 1949, John. Thanks, Randy. Bye, guys.